right, thank you so much for coming to this year's Vermont Tech Jam. My name is Kathy Resmer. I'm the deputy publisher of 7 Days and I'm one of the organizers. And I can't tell you, I've been waiting for a couple years now to have this space filled with all of you folks and our speakers tonight. So I'm really, really happy to see you. Thank you for coming. I want to acknowledge a few folks before we get started. First of all, I want to acknowledge our hosts at Hula. What an amazing building this is. Yeah. So I think Russ Scully and Rob Lair, Cassidy Pettit, Jeff Henderson, Tim Wall, I think you folks are here. Just want to thank you guys very much, not only for making this amazing space and also being a partner on this event, helping us to plan it and sponsoring it, and couldn't have done it without your support. I also want to thank a few of our other community partners this year. We had Beta Technologies, we'll hear more from in a bit, Biotech Agilent, C2, Coldwell Banker, Hickok and Boardman, Data Innovations, Global Foundries, Marvell, Mascoma Bank, Norwich University, OnLogic, VIP, Vermont Technology Council, and our organizing partner from the very beginning, the Vermont Technology Alliance. Thank you. There are a few other folks I feel like I should thank for providing security today. Chocolate Thunder Security. Atomic for our AV during the day. These guys have mic'd us up and they've got these video we're going to show you here. They are also filming this session, which we'll have a recording available online in a bit. I need to also thank some of my coworkers. Well, the staff of 7 Days has been here helping all day long, answering questions and doing registration, and it's just been fantastic. But in particular, I want to single out Katie Hodges and Don Eggert, who really put this all together. And I have to also acknowledge Paula Routley, our publisher and executive, or editor-in-chief, publisher and editor-in-chief. Paula had this vision for the Tech Jam from the very beginning, and she has been relentlessly pursuing this day since January of 2020. So thank you, Paula. So those of you who have been to Tech Jam before know that we have never had a keynote speaker. We've never done it because we weren't sure who to ask, who would be the perfect keynote. They'd have to be someone with a national reputation, but also ties to Vermont. We wanted someone who is solving real-world problems that all of us can relate to, not just necessarily in one specific industry. And we really wanted someone who could inspire us to reach for the horizon. And I am so excited because our two guests tonight check all of those boxes. And to introduce them to you, I'm going to bring up 7 Days staff writer Chelsea Edgar.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I am super excited to introduce our two guests, Kyle Clark and Martine Rothblatt, who are building something incredibly cool here in Vermont. Kyle is a native Vermonter. He's a former professional hockey player, a licensed pilot, an entrepreneur, and the founder and CEO of Beta Technologies, which is an electric aviation startup based here at Burlington International Airport. Depending on where you live, you may have seen Beta's signature electric aircraft, ALIA, cruising the skies over Chittenden County during one of its practice flights. In a few minutes, we'll show you a short video that will get you an even closer look at ALIA. But Beta isn't just trying to develop a cool electric plane. Their goal is to transform the way people and goods move around while minimizing the greenhouse gas emissions driving climate change. And towards that goal, they've already earned some major votes of confidence. This year, Beta brought in $368 million in investor funding from major companies, including Amazon's Climate Pledge Fund, UPS has requested 10 Aaliyah planes for its shipment routes by 2024. And since beta launched in 2017, it's grown exponentially. Today it has 300 employees and a valuation of $1.4 billion. But before, yeah, $1 billion. But before all of that could happen, some pretty important people had to believe in Kyle's vision. And one of those people, Martine Rothblatt, will also be joining us in a few minutes. Martine's accomplishments are kind of impossible to summarize, but I shall try. She's an author, a lawyer, an entrepreneur, a futurist, an airplane and helicopter pilot, a transgender rights advocate. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but she's also the founder of Sirius Satellite Radio and a pioneer in the field of digitizing human consciousness through her Terasem Movement Foundation, which she launched from her home in Lincoln, Vermont in 2004. And Terasem's most popular spokesperson is a talking AI robot named Bina48, created using the downloaded memories of Martine's wife, Bina. And Bina48 has been a Tech Jam guest previously. So in the 1990s, Martine and Bina's daughter, Genesis, was diagnosed with pulmonary arterial hypertension, which is a fatal disease. So in an effort to save her daughter's life, Martine researched possible treatments and launched a biotechnology firm called United Therapeutics to pursue them, because that's what you do when you are Martine Rothblatt. Today, United Therapeutics sells 5 FDA-approved medicines to treat the disease, and Genesis works for the company. But the only cure is a lung transplant, and organs are in incredibly limited supply. So United Therapeutics plans to manufacture the organs and deliver them to recipients using a very special kind of aircraft, which is where Beta comes in. Martine put up $1.5 million in funding to help Kyle launch Beta, and she serves on Beta's board of directors. So I'm really looking forward to bringing them both together for a conversation in just a few minutes. But first, here is a short video of the two of them flying Aaliyah.
Best day of my life. Best day of my life.
Nice job.
Thank you.
That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Today's objectives, obviously we've got Martine Rothblatt here. We're doing her checkout and familiarization with the aircraft. And we're also validating some tunes made on the squeals for both drag and some adjustments made to the tuning of the front casters. We'll do a quick roll call. Aaliyah.
Here.
Sweet.
So we're joined this morning by Martine Rothblatt, who's the founder and CEO of United Therapeutics. They are our first customer, and Martine met Kyle 4 years ago and has been supporting him and this company and this quest ever since. And today she's going to fly with him in this electric aircraft that together they helped design. In a minute we're going to be finishing up our pre-flight inspections and loading batteries, and we're going to push them out, and she and Kyle are going to fly this aircraft. And we're really excited to see this happen. Her flying this aircraft is validation of that faith that she's put in us and the hard work that the team has put forward.
It's amazing. A nice little armrest pad here.
She's just an amazing person. She's shown me how much she cares about people and about doing the right thing for the planet. And something she's always said to me is, you know, there's always time to do it right. She's never been like, let's do this, let's get this done. She says specifically, there's always time to do it right. So let's just take our time, let's learn it the proper way.
What piqued my interest in urban air mobility is the work we do at United Therapeutics in flying organs from one place to another. When we make an organ, it has to be used within hours, like at the outset 12 hours. the only practical way to get the product to the patient who needs it is by flying. As we continue to help more and more people with organ transplants, it has to be gotten there by flight. And if we do this all with regular aircraft, we're going to be making a humongous carbon footprint. So this is what got me thinking about electric aircraft, what they call now EVA, electric vertical aircraft, as a solution to being able to deliver our organs without a carbon footprint.
I mean, this is an awesome day for a lot of people, but for me, as one of her flight instructors and somebody that's flown with her and understands her passion for flight and her passion for people and the planet, to see her able to fly an airplane, that she was instrumental in the opportunity to build this thing, it's awesome.
You're not fighting a machine through the air. Instead, you're almost like surfing the air. It's also aesthetically very beautiful. Anywhere like your angle of vision goes, whether it's to the beautiful booms, or the fuselage, the way that you have an almost 360 degree, field of vision, certainly more than 180 degree field of vision, you're sailing through the air in glass. But here we came up with this idea. Kyle sketched it out on an iPad, and the same shape, the same dynamics, the same aircraft that he had sketched out on an iPad here exists in person, and I'm flying it through the air. I'm banking it, I'm pitching it, I'm climbing, I'm taking off, I'm landing. It's like, holy Christ, can life get any better than this?
We did it. Fun.
Ah, man, best sense of achievement and accomplishment in my entire life.
That would be saying a lot.
Wow.
Please keep it going for Kyle Clark and Martine Rothblatt. Hello, Martine. Hello, Kyle. So awesome to have you with us. Thank you so much for being here. So I'd like to start by asking you, Kyle, tell us about the day you and Martine first met and how that led to the creation of Beta.
She might correct me on a couple things, but it was March of 2017, and I was asked to analyze another project that Martine was working on, which was a electric helicopter, and by a mutual colleague in North Carolina. And in going through this, he said, hey, would you like to come to a meeting in Philadelphia and present some findings, but more importantly, how you may contribute to a project that Martine was sponsoring in electric aviation. And so I did an analysis on the batteries, and the motors, the inverters, and put that in together with another analysis on the aerodynamics and structures that other people had done. And Martine was there to kind of evaluate the overall program. And this is how I remember it. She said to me, she goes, who are you and why are you here? And the one thing I definitively remember you asking me, are you getting paid to be here? And I said, well, not yet. And she was, I can tell because you just love this stuff, which was I think hopefully came across in the way I was talking about just batteries and motors and inverters, which are just boring parts, but it was on an airplane. And that's what was exciting to me. And then as I had done since, as my wife knows over here, since 2002, pitched her on the concept of Beta Air, which was a more intuitive way to fly an aircraft, but it had a lot of fundamental principles. And the way I see it is she took this vision of Beta Air, which I had pitched at peak pitch, the road pitch, everybody that would listen here in Vermont, and couldn't find anybody to invest it. And she just gave me a little quarter turn adjustment. She said, how about if we do it in this direction? And she said, I've got a house in Lincoln. Come up here this Friday, which was Willa's birthday, my daughter. And I was supposed to go up there for a 9 o'clock meeting in the morning and come back for Willa's birthday party. And she was 14, now she's 18. And I never showed up for the birthday party. We started talking. That's how we met. And we could talk about all the stuff we talked about for that entire day. I think I got there at 9 o'clock and I didn't get home till midnight. But it was awesome. And that's what really kind of solidified, in my mind anyway, that there was somebody who was thinking about physics and the world and the interdependencies at a level way beyond which I'll ever be able to do. But at least in that little area that I thought that I was thinking about it, and I had 13, 14 years of thinking about it, right? And she got it immediately and said, yeah, let's go do that. And I'll finish the story. And then I got home that night and I was all motivated. And she has an art curator and an artist by the name of Bill Rock who designs her website and all this stuff. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, how do I write a proposal to Martine? And so I sat down and painted a watercolor-ish, made it into a couple slides, wrote all over it with pen, and sent it to Martine. And it was about 9 a.m. and I was out in the wood shop actually working on a motorcycle. And Katie came out with my phone and she held it in front of me. And there was just 2 words from a text from Martine. She said, "You're on." And that was the acceptance. Thank you. That's all.
So Martine, what did you see in Kyle that day that made you curious about him?
I don't think it was so much a matter of being curious about him as a matter of being like blown away, impressed by him. I saw an individual that had an ability to merge art and engineering together. He had a synergy of like left brain thinking and right brain thinking, that he understood all of the aerodynamic and the electrodynamic principles that would be needed for an electric vertical aircraft. But he also had an intuitive sense of how to make something beautiful. And in aviation design, beauty is very important because especially when you have limited power, as you will always have with an electric aircraft compared to one powered by gasoline or Jet A fuel, you have to rely on aerodynamics to a much greater extent to go a long distance. And the way you rely on aerodynamics is you're supposed to have a very good ratio of lift to drag. That means that the plane needs to kind of float through the air as much as possible and not be overly dominated by wind resistance from flying through the air. Kyle understood that nature has been well aware of this principle for millions of years and developed, all kinds of beautiful birds that can fly very long distances, and some of them like frigates that can literally fly, 1,000 and more miles. And he designed this beautiful Aliyah aircraft as described in the video. And I saw, wow, this is an individual who truly merges art and engineering, who loves flying, loves being able to take an idea and convert it to practice. He's a maker in his soul. He would not like to do something if he cannot make it. This is kind of like, if I can say, the business soulmate I've always been looking for. And I really fell in love with him, to tell you the truth.
That's beautiful.
On that note, we were actually out flying earlier today, and I was flying a 1942 Piper Cub, and I had the power firewalled on a 65 horsepower motor, maybe a little past the red line, so maybe it was putting out 70 horsepower. And I kept asking Martine what they were pushing for kilowatts. And they were putting about half the power into the plane and outperforming my plane. And this is where it is immediately obvious to us that when we're building an electric plane, or it was obvious to the folks that built the plane that she flew this morning, that precious energy in the batteries has to be sipped as carefully and purposefully as possible. And that means people like, where's Minot? Right here. Geez, I knew you were over here somewhere. You moved. Minot, who's developing the propulsion system with a whole bunch of smart people, and the aerodynamicists who did the detailed computational fluid dynamics are putting, they're not thinking, okay, I just got to build an airplane. I got to build an airplane the way that Tesla thought about door handles. Like, that's a little bit of drag. The underside of the Tesla, who's crawled underneath the Tesla, and see that it is almost perfectly smooth with a couple ridges. All those little things matter in order to make a system. And just today when we were flying, I was just chuckling to myself while I was singing, because I sing when I fly a lot. And so does Katie. She was singing all the way back from last night from New York into the microphone.
What were you singing?
I was singing this silly song that Charlotte's been playing on the ukulele over and over again. But anyway, the point is, you're happy. You're happy. But what made me even happier was the fact that they're using half the power that I'm using in an electric plane.
Yes.
It's just neat.
So talk a little bit about the evolution of Beta from this sort of idea of aviation as a kind of passenger-specific form of mobility to the cargo and logistics stuff. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, it actually wasn't a transition from passenger to cargo and logistics. The industry, however, has transitioned from a focus exclusively on passenger to a realization that cargo, medical, logistics is the right point of departure into this new technology. But for Beta, and this is where like the first directional clarity that Martine provided us was, look at this focal point. She gave us a spec with 10 points on it, and it was a 10 system spec. And it was 600 pounds, 250 nautical miles, greater than 100 knots. These are the performance portion of the spec. Recharge in less than an hour. We looked at that specification, and the specification was designed around moving organs in these organ containment systems. Well, what's interesting about organs is you can't really think of a more precious cargo or a higher value cargo, or at least I can't. It's going to save somebody's life. It's time dependent. There's a lot of reasons. And because of that decision, and then when we sat down and talked about customers and how we were thinking about it, focusing on cargo as the next point of that was very, very purposeful. And it's a saying that I first heard Martine say in a board call that I listened to, which was finding a corridor of relative indifference and running like hell down it. There's a lot of those in our business, but this was one of them. And it was everybody's circling the light bulb of passenger mobility. We all sit in traffic, and the obvious thing is hop over the traffic. But if you think for the last year, how many packages came to your house? And how many times you got on an airplane, and what the volume of you is, times those airplane rides, and those packages, times the times they came to your house. Cargo and logistics is a massive industry that's underneath everything. Hey, Val. This is my original mentor. It's so obvious that that's the case, but it's relatively indifferent to our daily lives because the stuff just shows up. So it was clear to Martine that you take the most precious cargo, and that's our focal point. And then it became, I was slow. It took me a little while. We went through some relationships with other companies that were looking at passenger, and we got renewed focused on doing this.
So when it came time to launch Beta, you both have strong ties to Vermont. You have a house in Lincoln. You grew up in Essex, Kyle. But why here? Why launch Beta here in Vermont? What makes this the right place for it?
I mean, there's a billion reasons why it's the right place. I think the most important thing is the people. And the people that are here in Vermont, and it was said to me when we sold iTherm to Dynapower by this guy by the name of Adam Knudsen, and he goes, big snowstorm, and he goes, I think more people show up to work when we get a big snowstorm. And it's just this, there's an undertone of that. It's like there's a challenge out there, we're going after it. And that's the attitude that I see in a lot of Vermonters.
For me, it's you know, it's very kind of full circle for me in Vermont. When our youngest daughter, Genesis, developed pulmonary arterial hypertension, as mentioned in the video, one of the first things that the doctor said is she first fainted and collapsed on a ski trip in Telluride, Colorado. And our family always took skiing trips together. the doctor said, you cannot go above 5,000 feet altitude anymore. It's going to cause her arteries to constrict more, and at any time it could just cause her right heart to collapse. So we gathered the kids around. We have 4 kids, and we said, well, we won't be going skiing in Colorado anymore. We'll just have to go skiing in like Maryland, which is kind of like not skiing. So the 3 older brothers and sisters said, why can't Genesis stay home and we'll all go to Colorado? I said, no, we're not going there. So I did research. I said, there must be someplace on the East Coast which has Colorado-like snow. And there were like early versions of the internet at this time, like in the 90s. And I came across Jay Peak, Vermont, which had like, the number of inches of snow and the fluffiness and just, beautiful skiability that you would find in Colorado. So we began going every winter to Jay Peak, and Genesis was able to go there and continue skiing. And then our son, we were in Vermont so much, he wanted to go to Goddard College and went there, graduated from UVM, then got his master's from Goddard later. So we developed like really strong ties from Vermont. But it started with our daughter. And so when I meet Kyle and he says like, I'm from Vermont, my nascent company is from Vermont, it kind of seemed to me like this relationship with Kyle was to save Genesis with, lung transplants that could be delivered in a green fashion. And it kind of seemed like all sort of like the energy flows of the universe were coming together for Vermont. And I'm not trying to be metaphysical. I'm like a total scientist, my mind frame. But I will say that I think it has worked out very much like it was meant to be.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's interesting you started with this analytical approach of snowfall.
Yes.
And we end up with this.
Altitude, yeah.
Yeah, but look how beautiful it's worked out. And so on top of that, I will say that we have offices in a dozen different states in the United States. We have employees in almost every state. I have, in my life, I have not met a state that has a higher percentage of free-thinking and hardworking and honest people than the state of Vermont.
So, Kyle, in just about 4 years, you've taken Beta from a concept on an iPad sketch to a company with more than 300 employees, and you have you've started businesses. You're an entrepreneur. Martine has been at it a little bit longer. What are some things that you've learned from Martine about building a company from the ground up?
I would say like the biggest thing is that culture is king. Is that culture eats strategy, eats tactics every day. Really focus on the culture, and the number of employees is like a tertiary byproduct of this. It's what I'm most proud of is when we walk into our business today, all the people that are in the business, and there's tons of them here today, they know what they're doing, they know what their purpose is, they feel good about it, they want to work with their colleagues, and the second thing is focus. It's here's what we're after. Define it very clearly. And it makes it easy for all those people to get behind it. And yeah, as you grow the business, you got to add people. But the objective is not to add people. That's not the measure of progress in my mind. The measure of progress is what the output of those people are. And I think the most extreme example is in software, where you can have a software engineer like Artur Adib, who has an office down here, who can put out about 10 times as much as another software engineer next to him. And how is that possible? Well, it's possible with focus. And the same thing's true in writing. We've all been in there. We have 3 hours to write a 10-page report. Somehow we get it done. Last week it took us 2 weeks to write the same 10-page report. But when you know there's a clear objective, it's focused, and you're not kind of sure that maybe something might be in that direction, It's that spec that I just, 250 nautical miles, charging less than an hour, 105 knots. That's where we're going. You ask anybody in the business what our objectives are, it's clear. We're not going to get there in one shot. So I think that's like one of the biggest lessons. 100 other lessons, but that's the first one that comes to mind.
Would you like to add something? Do you feel like there's anything you've imparted to Kyle that you've seen him take and run with to great effect at Beta?
I think there's a lot of things I've actually learned from Beta and learned from Kyle. One of those is that no paper project ever fails. If you want to do something, you have to make it. And I have been so impressed with Beta and Kyle that every single idea they have, within 24 hours, they're trying to make it. They have an idea for a better motor. Minot is going to be in charge of building it. She is like 100,000% hands-on. If it's not real, it's just fiction. And I was one of the, right after I met Kyle, we developed this idea of why don't we try to persuade people in the country that electric aviation is real by flying an electric plane across the whole country. And so within days, Kyle was building it. And we could have talked about it and it would have never failed, but it would have also never taught anybody anything. Instead, we started building it. It was and is the heaviest eVTOL that has ever been built and ever been flown. And it's flown up and down Plattsburgh Airport countless times, vertically lifting, transition, everything. But there was a time in building it when we said, this is something that we built for the purpose of flying it across country. It's not something that was built for the purpose of getting it certified by the FAA, approved by the FAA, and starting to fly people's organs to different places to save them. So now that we've learned everything that we can learn from this, let's cancel that project and move on to what's most important. That takes a great deal of fortitude to come up to a person who's funding you to do something and to say, maybe I made a mistake, or maybe I'm changing course, or I want to do something different. I'm not doing exactly what we all agreed we were going to do. But that made me believe in Kyle even 1,000 times more, because he was willing to question authority, and everybody at Beta is willing to question authority. Whenever I participate in a pre-flight review at Beta, before anybody gets in an aircraft at Beta to fly anywhere, there's a whole room full of people that everybody is supposed to stand up and challenge any aspect of the flight plan, any aspect of the aircraft. It is the most question authority culture that I've ever seen. And I have been myself tremendously inspired and educated by my experience being a member of the Beta team.
It's funny because, as everybody here probably surmises, I remember like the weeks before presenting this course correction with Martine, like just sweating and thinking, is this the right thing? And how do we go about thinking about this? And I started into this like well thought out presentation to her, and she goes, "Stop, Kyle. If you're asking me if you fulfilled what you said you were going to do, the answer is yes." And I said, "Okay, well, how should we move forward?" And she goes, "Keep your promises and think about the patients." And those two things. And there's a certain time when I think I learned from Martine, there's a leader has to get into every little detail and make sure that you're right there and doing everything. And there's another time when you provide clarity by saying, this is our objective. And thinking about the patients, of course, is translating to how does this thing save lives? And what are the right steps today? Was it flying across country, or was it transitioning to something that was going to actually make that happen? It's a longer road. You have to have a whole lot of patience, which is a weird thing to think about. But that patience can't come without this like absolute like determination that you're going to succeed at this. But it was readjusting what success was. And it was the patience and keeping your promises. And what was our promise? And fundamentally, our promise was to elicit critical thinking of aviation. That was our first objective. Yeah, of course, flying across the country, on an electric plane was going to elicit a lot of critical thinking because it wasn't a paper project and we were going to fail. And when we walk into flight tests, aside from what Martine says is this challenge culture that we've attempted to really encourage, is the concept of not let's go have a perfect flight test. It's let's go expose the issues. Let's go find out what's wrong, because that gives us the next thing to address.
Mm-hmm.
I always find it very odd when people don't want to be questioned or challenged, because I have this image in my mind that when those of us who are trying to create new technologies, we're always walking along a cliff line, because the technology might fail. It's like you fall off the cliff. And the people who challenge you and question you and criticize you, they're your best friends. They're the ones telling you, you might be about to step off a cliff behind you. So the main kind of, guidance that I always tell people is, embrace challenge, embrace questioning, embrace criticism. If it's something that's not true or you don't believe in it, then it's just like water off a duck's back. But this is why I'm confident that Beta will succeed when all of these other electric vertical companies will not succeed, because it's really hard for me to imagine that there's more of a challenge culture than you see at Beta. I just recently had the pleasure to be on the stage with the head of the FAA, who was the individual who oversaw bringing the 737 MAX back into flight. And as some of you may know from reading the papers, at Boeing, a name that's synonymous with aviation, there was a lack of this challenge culture. And people knew that things were wrong in the software, and they were afraid to tell their boss or whatever, and it was like a whole big hierarchy. And look, unfortunately, all the lives that were lost in that. The new head of the FAA, Steve Dixon, I think is a very solid guy. And he told me how he personally made sure that before the 737 MAX was brought back into flight, he personally flew it. He is a former F-15 pilot, so he knows how to fly, but he said before he was going to put Americans and other people back on that plane, he was personally going to fly it, and he was going to challenge and question everybody at Boeing in the hierarchy about it. And that's what Kyle does. Kyle is our Steve Dixon, and this is why I'm confident that Beta will succeed.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the qualities that you're looking for in employees, aside from this willingness to question and challenge? Just what is sort of the kind of, what are the kinds of people that you are seeking right now?
I feel like I'm going to give away all of our secret interview techniques. A couple things. This was like the theme of Design Book and Venture Co., which was my former business here in town, which was common passions and complementary skill sets. Like fundamentally, you have to have a team that is built up of different puzzle pieces of people who do different things, are experts in different things. But what makes those people really powerful is having a common passion. So when people come in, I will ask questions that will expose whether they care about sustainability, they are just intensely curious about technology, and if they love aviation. And if everybody in the business has 2 out of those 3, then you always share a common passion with your colleague, which makes your work better. That's the first one. The second thing is something I learned from Martine is that artists that are engineers that love what they do make better employees. And so the subtlety there is that art comes in many, many different forms. And you expose this when we talk to people about, you just start asking, what do you love to do? Is it something that is creatively driven? Is it something that's analytically driven? Is it trade stocks? I don't know. Nothing against a broker in here. But it's like, if you love creating things and you have this like ability to see beauty and it's in many different forms, like structural beauty and load paths are different than aesthetic beauty and form, are different than beauty in certain forms of art or decoration or whatever. But you see things as a system when you see things beautiful. And that systems thinking can be kind of mixed in with art because it all has to fit and be I don't want to say symmetrical, but it has to be in harmony, I think is the right way. So it's those 2 things. It's common passions, complementary skill sets, and it's the engineer artist who loves what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, in terms of the workplace culture also, it's, for instance, employees don't have to get vacation time cleared with their supervisors, right? They can just check in with their teammates and say, hey, how's this project going? Is it cool if I take off? Why that particular vibe? Like, why is that right for what you're trying to accomplish at Beta?
I think that, you know, when you give somebody the authority and the respect to make a decision, and I liken it to Chamberlain's Farm Market out by our house in Underhill, where you go up there, and in the fall, during harvest season, there's a coffee can that's packed full of $3,000 by the end of the day, and you make your own change. And I'm like, Paul, do people steal from you? And he's like, first of all, it costs me more to put somebody here watching owner everybody. But when you go up there and you make your own change, it's the respect that he's given you to make your own change. And it's a good example, I think, of the vacation thing. Nobody knows better than me buying the vegetables or me as the employee if my trade with the business is in harmony. If what I'm taking away, not from this building and the money over there, but all my colleagues, that's the business, all my colleagues who care about making this successful and what I'm giving into it. And that trade can come in all different forms of compensation, equity compensation, getting free flight training, cash compensation, just the fact that I'm being part of something that's meaningful, and what am I doing with what comes out of that? And my vacation and how much time I put into it affects those people. So the idea is, you want to go on vacation? Well, you make sure the person you're working right next to every day, you're not going to leave them high and dry. That you check in with them. Because whoever is the, quote, manager doesn't know shit about like whether or not you're letting your colleagues down. They have a vantage point. They have a particular perception. So go to your colleagues, and everybody who's a colleague, if you've earned that, they give you a high five and say, yeah, absolutely. I'm happy that you're going to do that. So that's the idea behind the respect that's given to make those decisions, and also the philosophy that vacation is as a thing, which is really inseparable from whether you leave early or whatever. It's just a concept of what you're giving and what you're taking. Mm-hmm. It has to be in balance.
Yeah, yeah. So switching gears a little bit, just this week, doctors at NYU completed the first successful transplant of a genetically modified pig kidney, which was developed by United Therapeutics. So, yeah. And, you know, just this past year and a half, we've seen pretty incredible scientific breakthroughs with the rapid development of safe, effective COVID vaccines. But we've also seen how those developments don't always trickle down where they're needed most. And so I'm curious about how you two are thinking about equity in terms of delivering life-saving interventions to people.
So speaking for United Therapeutics, from the start of the company, it is not in our DNA, it's not in our value system for anybody to be denied medicine because they can't pay for it. And I think, you know, another reason I just feel so comfortable in Vermont is because really Bernie Sanders' values are my values. So, you know, I like those values. And so we decided at the beginning of the company, anybody that couldn't afford our medicines, we would give it to them. And we have been doing that for 20 years. And we've never turned a patient away. Later on, it turned out, before the laws were changed, there used to be lifetime caps to insurance contracts. You could have insurance, a way to pay for a medicine, but it could use up, if it used up all of your insurance cap, and then you needed a transplant, which is ultimately needed for many patients, then you wouldn't have the money available for a transplant. And so we said, okay, you know, even if you have $300,000 left in your insurance contract, we'll still give you the medicines for free. You know, some people thought, oh, wow, well, your business is going to go right down the tubes because you're giving all the medicine away for free. But in fact, we've never had more than 5% of our patients without a way to pay for their medicines between Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance. and the other 5% get the medicines for free. We've now saved over 200 people's lives with refurbished lung transplants, lungs that were donated kindly by people, but doctors said the lung was so beat up or full of mucus, otherwise not transplantable, they were going to throw it away. We've told them, send them to our lung rejuvenation center in Silver Spring, Maryland, and another one at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. We refurbished these lungs 200 times. We've now been able to save people's lungs with lungs that were going to be thrown away. No cost to the patients whatsoever. So, in my way of thinking, if we can spend, I'll just use round figures as people do these days, $1 trillion a year on national defense, drop $2 trillion of bombs in Iraq, $3 trillion in Afghanistan. Why the heck can't we provide health care to everybody for free? I don't get it.
Yeah.
When I remember the day you sent me the article that said we just transplanted our first refurbished lung. It wasn't that long. It was 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago.
Yep.
And then I remember you sending me not too long ago, maybe a year ago, we did 2 in 1 day.
Yes.
And it's just this accelerating curve of adding, and this isn't an insignificant number. How many lungs are transplanted a year?
About 2,000. So we're now up to
10% improve. I mean,
and
not all done in
everybody
1 year.
thought it was impossible. I will tell you that coast to coast, people said that you cannot have a lung out of the body for more than 8 to 10 hours at most. And we have to have it out of the body from wherever the person died, fly it all the way to Maryland or to Jacksonville, still out of the body. So that right there uses up your 8 to 10 hours. Then we have to refurbish it, which takes 4 hours. Then we have to fly it again to wherever it's going to be transplanted. So you're kind of beginning to see why I need this electric vertical aircraft, because we fly these organs around a lot.
Yeah, and you've long been an advocate for the ethical application of technology to transcend our biological limitations, and so there's a very clear link there. But I'm interested just in hearing more about how electric aviation and beta figures into that for you.
Sure. So United Therapeutics is what you call a public benefit company. It means that profits are important, but are no more important than patients, and profits and patients are no more important than the planet. So all three of these things are equally weighted in our decision making. And we've always thought that, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to trash the environment in order to save lives, because ultimately that's going to hurt a lot more lives. People kind of forget that 8 million people die a year from greenhouse gas emissions, especially sulfates and stuff from burning coal. 8 million a year, that's a holocaust of people, every year. And so when we build our buildings are all zero carbon footprint buildings. We've now finished a couple years ago. Kyle was at the grand opening for it. The world's largest zero carbon footprint building. It's where we do our clinical trial research. It's called the Unisphere in Silver Spring, Maryland. 150,000 square feet. All of the heating, cooling, and electrical loads are all produced right on the site of the building itself in Maryland. And so our belief is that companies have an obligation to basically zero out their greenhouse gases.
It's and Martine's vision is having obviously a big impact on the decisions we make at Beta. And the way, as she was talking, I was just kind of constructing this thing in my head, which is the company is made up of the people. We as humans are, let's call ourselves triple bottom line, but I know there's a lot more. We don't simply, how many people work here just for a paycheck? Not a lot of hands, right? We care about the culture, we care about the people, we care about the people we work with. We care about, let's see, our environmental footprint, because we care about our kids and our colleagues and people that may not be as robust to an environment that isn't awesome, whether it be the air we breathe, water we drink, or anything like that. But if you boil that back and you say the company is a people, we all are a triple bottom line company, whether we're PBC or not. PBC openly says we're allowed to do that within SEC rules and all that other stuff. But I went to Martine not too long ago, and I started thinking about our new production facility here in Burlington. And we said, are we going to put in 300 thermal wells to the cost of $13 million? And we are like, we are in a space race. We're trying to make it here. We got to get this aircraft certified. Does that help us do this? And she goes, well, I think what you're forgetting, Kyle, is it'll help you get good people that are aligned with your values. So just in recruiting, that will pay for itself, which is a total twist on like this. And it was speaking to the awareness of people to be multiple bottom line people.
And you know, I've been able to do like a scientific experiment on that. So when we built the Unisphere and people challenged us, it turns out to do a zero carbon footprint building, it costs about 20% more than to do a polluting building. And you know, that adds up to millions of dollars when you're building big buildings. And some people said to me, why are you spending the extra money? I said, well, first of all, it's the right thing to do. You should do things because they're the right thing to do. But I said, secondly, I believe that we will retain our people better and hire better people. Now, it's in biotechnology right now is an extremely competitive market, like you were talking about the COVID vaccines and everything. And and more than half our employees are millennials. So we began asking people, you know, why are you working here instead of at any number of other biotech companies? The number one reason that came up is because I enjoy working in a zero carbon footprint building. I enjoy feeling that my life is not contributing to climate change. And we also have the lowest turnover of any of our biotech peers. Now that can't be by coincidence.
So I think lastly, we've got time for one more question and then we'll take some questions from you guys. But you guys just broke ground on the new production facility at the airport, and that will be able to accommodate how many more people?
When fully staffed, it'll be about 800 new people there.
Wow.
I love it.
It's,
I love it.
yeah, and for those that are looking for situational awareness, there's where, like, it was kind of the dumping grounds when they did the F-35 upgrades to the airport. We call it the South 40. It's down off the south end behind Pete's RV back there, and it's within line of sight of our research and development facility and a new cultural center that's going in, and some commercial buildings that will host childcare, early child. All right. Just maybe a month ago, Russ hosted a bunch of us here to talk about the importance of diversity in the workplace. And the thing that kept resonating, and I should have said something that night, I regret, so I'm going to say it now, is that one of the ways that we have to think about diversity in the workplace is enabling a diverse workforce. And to unblock people, let's say it's a single mother, to work, or a family that is not necessarily doesn't have the cash to go and pay for a nanny, to come and work there, is to unblock it. So it's before, like, I mean, workforce development, of course, training and whatever, but it's the non-obvious thing is to give them the ability, because nobody would disagree here that a kid from 6 months to 5 years, that development is super, super important, no matter who you are, right? And people care a lot about their kids, turns out, right? So to give them the ability to have that while they pursue a career, help the environment, build their own, be a part of something big was a big deal. So that's what we're building, and it's not just a building to build airplanes, is my point. It's a place for cultural alignment on sustainability, on aviation, on technology, learning things, and taking care of people and kids, having a diverse workspace, and it's a systems thinking about how we grow here in Vermont. And one of the key reasons we're doing it here in Vermont, and this was solidified in talking to actually Martine about this, which was we have 300 and something people. A lot of them are engineers who have learned through a lot of mistakes this product and the development of the product and the early manufacturing of the product. To take that and plop that somewhere else and then ask those people to relearn all the mistakes that we've made, and then the stress on the employee base to say, you need a permission slip not to be in our Missouri facility or whatever, because it was a little bit cheaper, didn't make any sense. And having the engineers close to that initial production line is key.
We've got time for some questions from you guys. If anybody has anything they'd like to ask Martine or Kyle. Kathy's got the mic right there. Yeah, just approach the mic and you could form a queue.
How you doing? My name's Wayne. Your opening question about the Piper Cub and the power you're using now with the weight of the Piper Cub compared to the weight the electric helicopter and the kilowatts you're doing, you're a lot more efficient, correct?
Well, so what we were flying this morning were two equally sized planes. We weren't flying that one. Martine was flying a different electric plane that was still about 1,300 pounds, mass crew takeoff weight, Piper Cub obviously about that, 960 or something, plus my big button there. But yeah, it was a very similar weight, but my point was drastic differences in L over D are one of the things that enable electric propulsion, being smart about the whole system.
Very good. Thank you. And also, I'm a kidney donor as well, so you guys are doing a great job with the organs.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter. Incredibly inspiring. Thank you for that. So just two-part question. One was Leonardo da Vinci an inspiration when you think about art? And also, where do you see the company and the technology in 10 years? Thanks.
I'm going to do something a little weird. This is Leonardo da Vinci. This is the natural wing. This is the biomimicry. And that's the form of a Leo. And there's a hand here that's drawing those lines together. And it's looking
I love it.
a little bit weird. And by the way, the no paper projects ever fail is here.
Keep Vermont weird.
Keep Vermont weird. But that, yes, Leonardo da Vinci, I mean, way before his time, thought of these things and the way the world was working, looked uniquely at how physics worked and created these machines for many different purposes with this fundamental understanding of how things worked and how things came together. This is something that Martine and I talk about quite a bit. It's like that vision is like the genetic sequencing. And we've got this type of understanding, this type of computing power. We've got this type of biology. Wait, we can put all that together. The physics are here. We understand them now. And Mother Nature is going to let us do it. And we've got this technology. It's not just 1 + 1. It's like 8 different A, B, C, D coming together to create something different. And that's really, I think, a unique skill. I forgot your second question.
Where will the company be in 10 years?
Oh, where will the company be in 10 years? In Burlington, Vermont. But the
yes.
We're building a aerospace company. And you know what? When Martine was getting introduced, and they said she has 5 FDA-approved drugs. I leaned over to her and said, okay, that's our new goal, 5 FAA-approved airplanes. So we're building an aerospace company. We're not building a single airplane or a recharging pad company. This is a stepping stone. The application it's after is a point of departure, and we use those terms very specifically. And Burt Rutan used to always say, people say, what's your favorite airplane? Design hundreds of airplanes. My next airplane. And it was a thought that, yeah, you got to make it real today, but I know I can make it better.
Kyle, can you talk for a minute about the nationwide network of recharging pads and how that serves as a storage for recycling batteries and for storing renewable energy?
Yeah, for sure. So in Burlington, if you're going to the main terminal and you look to the right, you'll see some shipping containers, an elevated helideck, and a bunch of containers off to the side. In some of those containers off to the side are arbitrage batteries that were previously used for a different purpose. You can see where this is going. When we fly with airplanes with batteries in them, they'll have some degradation. They degrade to a point where they're no longer really good for flying organs, but they still have 10 years of life on the grid. Meanwhile, we need to charge up a whole lot of airplanes. And our electric grid has quite a sense of humor when it comes to like getting bigger and pushing more total energy through it as we spread it out. Doesn't have much of a sense of humor to say, I want these super peaky loads. And charging airplanes has these super peaky loads. So with those arbitrage batteries, we're able to suck energy off the grid at the right times during the day, store it up, and when the airplane lands, we slosh that energy from our recycled or reused batteries into the airplane. The grid's happy because it's a nice, stable off-taker. We don't have to put diesel peaker plants on it. And the plane's happy because it charges really quick and we get the organs where they need to go. So we started that in Burlington, went over to Plattsburgh, New York, down to Rutland, over to Rome, New York, all across Pennsylvania, down to Dayton, Ohio. And then we went further. We went all the way down to Arkansas. And now Martine's putting in the first 7 pads at hospitals. I can't rattle them off. It goes all the way into Florida.
Yeah, Mayo Clinic, et cetera. I believe in 10 years, there will be hundreds of ALIA aircraft flying in the air. And in the 2030s, by the end of the 2030s, the most common aircraft that anybody will see in the air will be an electric aircraft from Beta Technologies.
Hey, Kyle.
Good to see you.
Yep, good to see you. ALIA wasn't the first airplane you built. I think you were trying to construct one at home, and you didn't have FAA approval, but somehow your mother was serving in that capacity. Can you talk about that?
I can talk about it. It's a sensitive subject. I started building an airplane. My dad ran the instrumentation model facility here in Burlington. He's retiring now, so he probably can't get in trouble for this, or he says he's retiring. The instrumentation model facility at UVM, and I was building aluminum airplane parts there. And I actually still have the aluminum airplane parts that I was making. We called it G-jobs on the side, right? And at home, I was trying to build the wood parts of the airplane. And Flanders in Essex, Vermont, didn't sell Sitka spruce. So I went down there and I bought Douglas fir. The grains were long. It looked a lot like Sitka spruce. And I said, I'm going to build an airplane. So I started building these pieces and constructing it. It was out of like the back of Popular Mechanics. And my mother got wind of this. And she didn't like the idea at all. And, Mom, where did my airplane pieces go? Well, they're burned, gone. And then she brought me down to John Abley's farm down here and introduced me to some people that had built Challengers, which, by the way, was probably a good decision. If I had built and flown this airplane, I probably would have killed myself. So it brought me down to John Abley's farm down here to somebody who was building Challengers. And that was my first introduction to the experimental aviation world. And that led me up to George Coy in northern Vermont, who took me up flying in aerobatic planes, and it was over after that. It was over. But yeah, I'm regrettably happy that I still only have pieces of that airplane in a box as opposed to scattered about a field.
Hi, Kyle. You talked about there are approximately 300 people in your company, and most of them are engineers. I'd love to know how many are artists. Second part of my question, can you describe a little bit more what the cultural center that's going to be a part of Beta in the future, and what does that look like?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't know that I'm the best person to talk all about it. There's a lot of people here from Beta that are working on that. But the cultural center, we know we need a training academy. There's a different type of airplane to fly. We know that we want to provide a place for our own employees to learn to fly, to get into the flying culture, and that all of those things that make somebody really love a business and want to be there need to be a part of that. So we sponsor or commission, I don't know what the right word is, art containers, for example, to inspire people to think differently about stuff. We think about the science behind electric aviation, and John Cohn, who's here, I saw him earlier, is coming up with all these ways of getting people thinking differently about it. So when thinking about how to describe a training academy that inspires people, that gets people into aviation, allows them, if they already love aviation, to go and practice that, sustainability, and all the things around it, we said, you know what, let's just call it a cultural center, because that's the culture of our business. And it could be misconstrued with, is it like an international cultural center? That's not what it is. It's a cultural center that's centered around the values of our business: sustainability, technical innovation, aviation. And that's going to be right over by the Valley West apron on the airport.
Thank you both for being here. Clearly, both of you are a force of nature. I wanted to step back a bit and broaden the question. How does Vermont become a force of nature? How do we create the ecosystem that impacts the world here in Vermont? Because it strikes me, because we're such a small state, that we can work together to tackle very large issues.
I think it starts really with education, ensuring that everybody in Vermont gets an awesome education from the earliest years, that education is free for everybody, that nobody has to think that they have to take on, you know, tens of thousands of dollars of debt or hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to college. That to me is the very definition of cutting off your nose to spite your face. There's a great number of brilliant mentors in Vermont that we need to kind of multiply. One of my colleagues, Dan Weiss, is at UVM, head of the Regenerative Medicine Lab. He's one of the world's leaders in figuring out how to help the body regrow any parts of it that are beginning to fall ill and feeble. So getting people like Dan Weiss to, you know, mentor 10 different Dan Weisses, and then having those 10 Dan Weisses mentor each of them 10 others, just, you know, multiplying it out. It's I think education is a necessary and sufficient basis for being awesome.
In terms of beta technologies, what is the most important things you disagree on, and how do you run with that disagreement?
Ooh, it's a provocative question. I'm thinking back to like board meetings and other things. I can't think of something where we ended up disagreeing on something. I can think of places where I was completely unsure on a direction to take, and Martine provided clarity on it. What are we doing wrong?
I don't think that we're doing anything wrong. I think we're always self-correcting. I mean, we definitely make mistakes and then we self-correct. We make mistakes and self-correct. But I want to give a fair and transparent answer to your question. So, and I don't know whether Kyle's right or I'm right. But Kyle is, amongst other things, and it's not just him, it's his entire management team at Beta. They are amazing entrepreneurs. You cannot grow exponentially, as you pointed out, in such a short period of time, and grow to over $1 billion market valuation without being really good entrepreneurs. A certain part of that, I think propels them to publicize what they're doing a lot, and to garner headlines, garner news media coverage, and that sort of thing. And they've been, I think, pretty good at it. There are other electric aviation companies that are much more so. Like they're just constantly trying to hype themselves to get their names in the press, whereas I think with Beta, it's always based on substance. They've really accomplished something, and then they get an article written about them. But I'm a little bit more cautious about that. We often joke that at United Therapeutics, our ticker symbol, which is UTHR on NASDAQ, that it actually stands for under the radar. And even with this recent, first genetically modified xeno kidney or porcine kidney, people were saying to me, okay, Martine, we should issue a press release. I said, no. Let the doctor who did the transplant issue a press release. Let NYU Langone, who did the surgery, issue it. We'll stand back. And there's a saying that I always remember, which is basically the best way to get something done is to do it before anyone else knows you're doing it. And so that's kind of like the antithesis of always publicizing everything that you do. But I'm not saying that I'm right or Kyle's right. I mean, Beta has a need to raise a lot of equity money. It's still some number of years before, there will be an FAA-approved plane that can be rolling off the assembly line here at Burlington. But that's an example of, I'd say, the only place where Kyle and I ever really kind of disagree is he may want to fly a plane to an air show and show the beautiful Aaliyah, and it's natural to want to do that. And I'm like, why do you want to do that? You know you're awesome. We know you're awesome. You don't need a bunch of strangers to tell you you're awesome.
This was a real conversation. I want to rebuke that, but I'm just going to bite my tongue. No.
Feel free.
I feel like this is a disagreement between Martine and the other board members, not so much with me. And I'm sitting in the middle of this, but that's okay. No, she's absolutely right. We had exactly that conversation.
Hi, my name is Skylar, and I'm just finishing up my degree at the University of Vermont. And I know I speak for myself and a lot of other aspiring entrepreneurs when I say that Beta and the work you guys have done, hugely inspirational. It really inspires a lot of confidence that the future's bright and you can do cool stuff in a surprisingly short amount of time. And I guess my question is, A, what prior experiences do you think have helped you both to be so successful as entrepreneurs? And B, what advice would you give for people that are maybe earlier on in their entrepreneurial journey?
So I think it's really crucial to know yourself and to embrace your authentic self. So if you don't have a passion, then your authentic self is a person in search of what their life is all about. Your authentic self is a person in search of a passion. And I think you should travel. I think you should continue to learn and explore the world until you find your passion, and you will find it. If you're not just, tethered to a desk or a computer somewhere, you will find it. If you do have a passion already, as Kyle had with aviation and still has, I personally first had with space and satellites. That was my first passion. Then it was saving my daughter's life. That was my next passion. So then you've got to embrace that. And you've just got to wrap your arm around yourself and say, this is who I am, and I'm just going to completely devote my life to being who I am and being as good at that as I can. I think a lot of people, they get forced into feeling that they'll try this job and see if it's what they like. But I think if it's not if you don't know you like it already, then you probably aren't going to like it. And the thing that has always helped me most in finding what I want to do is just go camping, go hiking, go traveling, talk to different people, talk to lots and lots of people. Every person is like a library. Every single person that you'll ever meet is like a library. And it's amazing what you can learn just by talking to people in all different walks of life.
Yeah, I'm going to build after you find that passion. So it was super clear to me that what I wanted to do. And I just couldn't get anybody to help join me to do it. And what the learning for me was how to convince people to do it. And part of it was listening to other people and making those adjustments of what I was trying to accomplish with Beta Air as it was in its original kind of creation to what it's become today. But the other thing that and this is a big piece of advice that I've learned from Martine, not because you said it, but by observing her. And I'll give you a silly story. We're at her house, and she goes, "Oh, I got a guy you need to talk to." I'm like, okay, well, that's not surprising. She goes, "I'm going to find his number. I'm going to find Paul's number." She called one person, leaves a message. "Oh, I'll get back to you on that." Calls another person, third person, fourth person. I'm like, "Martine, we don't have to waste our time." She's like, "No, we're going to find this guy's number now." and it was this insane persistence, and I'm like, "Get out of the way, Kyle. It's going to happen." And she did. And she after 7 or 8 or 10 phone calls, found this guy's number, gave it to me, and we went on immediately to the next thing. It was this this persistence that was just you couldn't get in the way of it. And like, it's different than perseverance, which is like riding through the faults and the ups and the downs and whatever. And one of the things that I've noticed is when you have, and noticed it myself, when I first started iTherm, it was like, all right, 3 years, I told my wife, we're gonna be retired by the time we're 30. Let's just go do this. And I know I said it again, but whatever. But the point is, you look only out a year or 2 years, or your supervisor might say, hey, keep at this for a year and we'll review this. And when you're 22 years old, a year seems like forever. And to think a little bit longer and longer. So it took me 17 years of pitching beta before somebody said, that's a good idea, let me adjust that and we'll go this way, right? And like, that was, I wouldn't call that perseverance. It was like, as Katie will tell you, I was every minute that I started another business was only so that I could get something to help start beta. And it was a different form of persistence and perseverance, but it was important to get to have the opportunity to try this.
Kyle is so right. You know, it's I call it like it takes 99 no's to get a yes. And when I was starting Sirius, it is insane to me how many people thought that was a completely stupid, idiotic idea compared to how many people now come up to me and hug me and say, thank you for Sirius XM. You know, my life wouldn't be the same without it. But at the beginning, everybody thought it was completely stupid. They thought it wouldn't work. They thought even if it did work, why would anybody want to buy a radio for something that nobody else was listening to? Why would anybody transmit programming when nobody had a radio to listen to it? I mean, they just had every single objection possible. And now the fact of the matter is I run into more people who are thankful for Sirius XM than are thankful for our life-saving medicines. It's insane. But I went to dozens of bankers, door slammed in my face. Dozens of electronics companies, door slammed in my face. It's just like Kyle said, you have to be willing to plow through 99 no's to get to your yes. But the only thing that will power you through all that is having that passion that you found within yourself. Otherwise, you won't make it past 2 or 3.
I think that's how are we doing? One more? Do we have time for one more question, Kathy? Or, okay, last question.
It's an easy one. Hey, Martine, thanks for being here. Kyle, good to see you. Jesse Kern with Blue Prism. Had a question about, it seems that your passion, your drive has really put you guys in a great place, a little ahead of your competition, but that space is really heating up. We're even seeing OEMs like Honda enter the space. How do you keep differentiating yourselves and stay one step ahead of the competition?
It's a good question. I don't quite see it like that. We weren't out front and people are catching us. There's a lot of smart people in this world, and other people had realization that batteries were hitting an energy density level that we could fly with, motors are hitting a power density level, aerodynamics, computational flow dynamics were enabling these higher and higher LVRDs. All these things were coming together. So a lot of smart people started working at it. And we started a lot later than other people. So I feel like we're on this trajectory and they're on this trajectory, and we're accelerating past them. And yes, like the whole Gardner hype cycle where we get a lot of people going after stuff, we're kind of on that. Like we're down here, and then the OEMs or the original kind of big incumbents like Siemens and Honda and Boeing and Airbus start to come up. And yeah, at some point they start to converge, but the market starts to grow for people like us who are on this trajectory that started at the point where the hype was maybe peaked or a little bit after, but had the fortitude and the sustainability to work through it. And we're on this, and there's a lot of folks who started to put hundreds of millions of dollars in this, and they've already evaporated. And so I don't see it as us being out here and people are catching us. We have overtaken almost everybody in the industry, in my opinion, if not everybody, and we are already looking towards the end. And the derivative of our business, I would say, is higher than anybody else in the industries.
The only thing I would add to that is that when I first visited Kyle's brand new offices in Burlington, he had some really perfect quotes on his board, on his wall. And one of them is one of my all-time favorite quotes. It's from Margaret Mead, that it only takes a small group of committed people to change the world. Indeed, nothing else ever does. And Beta, with its 300 people, is a small group of committed individuals. Honda, Boeing, Lockheed, I mean, they are so humongous, they can't even figure out, like, you know, who's in charge of what. And I think that our nimbleness by being a smaller company, our focus on this cargo and logistics market, which everybody else has ignored, will enable us to succeed, notwithstanding more and more big companies coming into the space.
Yeah, I'm going to just one more really funny kind of quick story. When Martine first came to that office, I called up a friend of mine, Marty, and I said, oh my God, I just sent this proposal to Martine. She said you're on. I need an office like tomorrow. I called my dad and I was like, I need oscilloscopes, power analyzers, and whatever, and we need to make this real. And I kept reciting this line that my football coach said to my brother and myself. He would always say, opportunity knocks very quietly. And I felt like this was like banging on the door, so it had to be a really good one. And I was like, what are the key things, what are the key messages that I need to give to Martine when she comes here to believe that we can do this? And I can feel like I can say this now without jeopardizing anything, but it was like, slap some urethane on that workbench, put it over here, get these quotes on the wall so that we make sure we telegraph these things, obviously consciously, I thought it was subconsciously, get this place looking like we know what we're doing, convince a couple people to come in there, and give her the confidence that we are 100% at it. And it's funny because in doing those exercises, it's almost like, of course, she's going to come here and assess this because we had the confidence that we were going to win at getting her to believe in what we were doing. And it was like an all weekend, all night thing because Martine was coming just a few days after that.
But you know what, even that first day, as small as that office was, I'd say they probably had 1,000, maybe 2,000 at most square feet total. In one room was a flight simulator.
Yeah.
Okay, even though it was like a desktop one, simple compared to the beautiful one in the Airstream that you can see out in the parking lot. They had a flight simulator. They were actually flying the shapes of aircraft that Kyle had designed. And in the other room, I don't know if you remember this, small, tiny room, maybe like, I don't know, 200 square feet, they had taped to the wall every other competitive concept that anybody had dealt with, every type of picture of every other type of aircraft, taped all over the wall, kind of like a crazy person would tape things up all over the walls. But it goes to what you said, you know, they were watching what the entire environment was doing, and they were finding where was the corridor of indifference in that market that they could be number one in, and they achieved it.
The biggest one of those whiteboards was covered with our stuff, though.
Yes.
But so wasn't only competitors.
Right.
All right, let's hear it one more time for Martine and Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Thank you very much.
This is very fun. Thank you so much.